So, Monday, Congressman Tim Ryan, around whom there's speculation he'll challenge Nancy Pelosi for the speakership of the House, and that he may also run for president in 2020, stopped by. He has a new book entitled Healing America. Little did we know when we talked about Healing America in the context of his new book that we would have all these bombs. Even though they weren't bursting in air, no matter what the right wing says, it's still, bombs are bomb. And as we just heard on Friday Morning Fights, most of you think it's the rhetoric coming out of the White House that precipitates this. How do we heal? How do we stop all of this divisiveness and lack of civility in America? Well, Congressman Ryan thinks he has an answer. Also asked him about running for speaker and running for president, so we hear all of that. His new book is entitled Healing America. For those of you on the radio, take a listen. For those of you watching on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, make it plain. You can watch right here, right now. Ladies and gentlemen, brand new book, Healing America, how a simple practice can help us recapture the American spirit. I must confess, when I read that subtitle, I was like, as complicated as it is, what simple practice could there be? Lord have mercy. It's rough out here, y'all. But he's got the answer. We're going to talk to him about it. He is Congressman Tim Ryan from the 13th District in Ohio. Good to see you, man.
Great to be with you.
We met at the Congressional Black Caucus Gala, and we said we follow up with each other, and here you are.
We made it happen.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations on the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, what is a simple practice? I read about it, but tell the audience.
Yeah,
the
simple practice is the practice of mindfulness meditation, which is a kind of a technique used to get us out of the future mode that we sometimes live in, or the past mode of regret that we live in, and really disciplining your mind to be in the present moment. You see a lot of athletes using this now. The Seattle Seahawks, the Chicago Cubs have a chief mindfulness officer in their sport. A lot of the major athletes are using it, and it has huge benefits for reducing stress, helping kids learn how to focus and concentrate, and heal veterans. So it's a very simple thing, but has profound impact.
Is this for something you're recommending for all Americans, average Americans, or those that are the ones that are most troublesome right now, like Trump? Do you envision yourself meditating with him on a yoga mat? Or
I can't think of anyone who could probably use it more than him. But it is a technique for human beings. I mean, just to really get back to what is best and deepest within us, how to get our mind focused on the present moment. We get pulled in so many directions. So whether you're a single mom with a couple of kids and tough economic situation, learning how to make ends meet, or you're a high-powered athlete or CEO, everyone's using it now.
How can this improve our very uncivil political discourse right now?
Well, I think we get first of all, we're in a state of fear, we're in a state of anger, and when that happens, your brain literally, and I talk about a lot of the brain science kind of quickly in one of the early chapters, your brain goes in the fight or flight mode. So you read a news article or you have a lot of economic anxiety, you can start operating from fight or flight, which means you either are going to get in a fight or you're going to run or freeze. Now, fight, flight, or freeze. And when you do that, you literally, if you look at the brain scans, your brain literally can't engage your prefrontal cortex, which is your executive functions, your working memory, decision-making, ability to focus and concentrate and mobilize your attention span. You can't even access that part of your brain because you're in fight or flight mode. Mm-hmm. And what this does is it gets you out of fight or flight so that you can then connect with your prefrontal cortex. So you're smarter, you think clearer. But ultimately, I think it helps us connect with each other. I mean, the big problem today is we're disconnected. Mm-hmm. We're disconnected from each other. We're disconnected from nature. We're disconnected from our government in so many ways. So many people don't vote. They're registered but still don't go out to vote. So this is a way for us to slow down and kind of reconnect with each other again.
What you just described, that brain disconnection, I think there's a whole television network devoted to people not making the kind of connection you're talking about.
Yeah.
It keeps the fight or flight
Totally
thing going.
Well, you look at your news feed every morning. It's like these are for-profit ventures. Like that's what the media is. So, and for me to get you to pay attention, I have to say something that's going to crank up that part of your brain that's going to get your eyeballs on my TV. So then I can sell ads for $10,000 a pop or $100,000 a pop or whatever the number is. So when you start to realize that, you start to look at the world a little bit differently. And I think politicians use this all the time. How can I scare you? How can I put fear into your body?
And just to show some of the people, you'll recognize folks that are endorsing the book Healing America by Congressman Tim Ryan, former Chicago Bulls coach Phil Jackson, who employed the practice himself.
Yeah.
Tim Ryan challenges the nation to take up meditation in their daily lives and tells us how it works. I know this territory and wish him and us Godspeed. Deepak Chopra, our friend, this book has the potential to change our country and the world one person at a time. This is not the typical area or discourse you would find for a politician or a member of Congress. No. So what brought you here?
I went to Catholic school my whole life. I grew up, my mother, my Italian grandparents prayed the rosary a lot. So my football coaches used to pray the rosary, and they would go into the chapel at my Catholic school and get some meditation and prayer. So I grew up with men in my life, coaches in my life, football coaches, that appreciated this kind of technique. I then learned centering prayer, which is a Christian-based meditation that I still practice today, from a priest friend of mine, from Father Crumley. And then I went on this journey of learning different kinds of meditation, breathing techniques, mantra-based techniques, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer. And then I went on a 5-day retreat, more and more silence throughout the 5 days. And that blew the top off my head and really helped me really understand the essence of this practice is you're studying how your mind works when you're not paying attention. Like, what am I thinking about? So a good example is the road rage, right? Someone cuts you off or you cut someone off and you just go off on this person. Now, chances are there's a list of things that happened to you before this person cut you off that are leading to you reacting that way. It's not just that one thing. Right. So to begin to peel the layers back, see what you're thinking about, what's causing you stress. I mean, that's why when you see some of the studies about mindfulness and other meditation techniques like TM and others, you see blood pressure counts go down. Your blood pressure goes down. Why? Because you're changing those negative, anxious thoughts that you're having that you didn't even know you were having. And all of a sudden you wake up one day and you got high blood pressure, and over the course of your life you got heart disease, and inflammation is causing all kinds of sicknesses. So by understanding how your mind works, you begin to, what the practice is, you see that thought and then you come back to your breath. You see that anxious thought, you come back to your breath. So now that thought's not dominating, you are intentionally coming back to your own anchor in your own body and mind.
It's interesting you mention that. This morning, I've never seen this before. This morning on the subway on the way in, I saw a gentleman pray the rosary on the subway. I'd never seen that before. I went. Full disclosure, I went to Catholic school all my life.
All right.
Even though I'm not Catholic, I may as well be because I was in Catholic school. I'm a Baptist minister, but I grew up in a Methodist church. So I put the three together and tell people I'm Methodist, Methodist, Catholic, and Baptist. I've had all three experiences. It sounds like a cough drop, doesn't it? Yeah. But this is actually very, very interesting. And as I said, sort of a different take on how we should proceed. And literally what you're describing is stuff that individuals need, the country needs. You mentioned dealing with the present more so than the past and the future. Explain that a little bit more, if you would.
So your mind tends to, if you stop and you turn everything off and you spend 5 minutes in quiet and then watch where your mind goes, chances are it's going to go into the future. You're going to be anxious about something that hasn't even happened yet. You may think, oh boy, something really bad's going to happen.
Like just to plug in some contemporary examples, the caravan of people that's about to come into the country that you and other Democrats have arranged to happen.
Right.
So that's an example of an anxiety, right?
Right. Here they come. The transgender people, they're coming. They're they're going to come ruin our civilization.
Right.
So pick the issue, right?
Yeah.
And then you can sit there and say, okay, or in your own life, I worry about my kids. My kid's just got his driver's license, so oh my God, let me worry about that. Something that you did in the past. So you'll sit there and you'll say, neither of these are real.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally in the past, or you're making up and imagining the future.
Right.
And so that can build a lot of anxiety, and so they say, well, have positive thoughts. Well, first stop and notice what you're thinking about. What are you thinking about all the time? And understand yourself, know thyself, and know how your mind works. And then you will begin to identify. I'll give you a great example in a school. Where this is really powerful is in our schools, transforming kids' lives. We were in a school in Northern Virginia. Goldie Hawn actually has a program called Mind Up, where she teaches social and emotional learning and mindfulness. We were sitting around with about 20 kids, ring a bell. We do about 2 minutes of silence, and then every one of the kids has to say, what's on your mind? Mm-hmm. One kid said, well, I got a test coming up next period. Young kids. Maybe third, fourth grade. Second kid says, long pause. Honey, tell us what's on your mind. My brother did not come home last night, and I'm worried about him. That is what was on this kid's mind. And so the teacher grabbed his hand, took him down to the office. He said, let's go call home and see if he's back yet. There was gangs in that district, some gangs. But to me, the light bulb went off, and it was like, this is what's on this kid's mind. And what's the best way for him to deal with this? Acknowledge it, understand it, have a support system around you to kind of deal with it. But you're starting to teach kids life skills on how to handle their own emotions. And that emotional intelligence is key to development. Now, getting back to your fight or flight, how's this kid going to learn if he doesn't learn how to deal with his fears and then actually have a technique to bring him back to a calmer state so that he can access his prefrontal cortex so he can learn math?
Yeah, I like that. So in an ideal world, people would think about embracing this on an individual level, and then us as a country on a collective level in terms of a lot of the discourse we're dealing with right now. That would be the ideal scenario.
And it's happening. I mean, it's happening in schools all over the country. They're seeing huge benefits with behavioral issues, increase in pro-social behavior by 10%, decrease in antisocial behavior by 10%. So that's a 20% swing in the school. You're seeing test scores start to go up in math and science because you're able to actually engage your prefrontal cortex, as I said. And they're doing it in healthcare systems. The military's doing it, Navy SEALs, some of our special forces. They're actually doing more and more studies now on how it helps with performance. So it's starting to happen in pockets. And what I want to do with Healing America is just try to throw gas on some of these fires, because I see it's working in a school district in Northeast Ohio. I was in Iowa, in Sioux City, they're doing it, and Council Bluffs, Iowa, they're doing it. It's like unreal where this is happening now.
And it's not partisan.
No, it should be conservative and liberal all at the same time. It's very cheap, and there's no side effects.
You mentioned your faith. I mean, it would seem to me that, one of the noisiest faith groups, so to speak, are Republican evangelicals. Seem to me that they would want to embrace something like this.
Well, Rick Warren, pastor at Saddleback Church, has a program called the Daniel Plan, where within his church, he has used nutrition and diet reforms, but also he sends out meditations. So in this book, Mindfulness is a secular practice. There's no belief system you have to adopt. You don't have to put on any robes or chants or anything like that. Sure. It's just you and your mind, and then disciplining your mind to be aware of what's going on in you and outside of you. But there are also religious techniques. Every religion has some contemplative practice to it. Islam does. Judaism has the Kabbalah. Christians have centering prayer and contemplative prayer from the old monks. Like, every religion has something. And so my pitch is, like, look, if you don't want to do mindfulness, which is secular, find something in your own religion. But everybody in the country now, we need to find something to get us out of fight or flight mode, and what's the tweet that the president sent out this morning, and into what is best and deepest inside of us.
What are the long-term effects if we don't do that, if we don't get into some type of contemplative mode as a nation?
I mean, let's stop. I mean, that's what I ask people to do. Take 10 seconds and stop and think about where we're going and what direction we're going in. Yeah. Where's the environment, income inequality, pensions, entitlement programs. Like, go through the list and, like, are we trending in the right direction on any of this stuff? So basically what I'm saying is, how do we call a 20-second timeout? Let's just, we don't have to get crazy, but call 20-second timeout and say, can we all talk about the direction we're going in right now? Right. That's important. And is this what we want?
Healing America, how a simple practice can help us recapture the American spirit. Congressman Tim Ryan, so 13th District, how's your race going? You're in pretty good shape, right?
Good. Yeah, working hard.
Yeah, and so we look forward to you winning that district. Are you confident the Democrats will win the House?
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously.
I feel we've got a lot of tight races. We got to get out and vote. People got to knock on doors. Stop sending out tweets and social media posts and go start knocking on some doors.
Because they don't vote, do they?
No, I mean, I think part of what we're you think if you send out a tweet, you're somehow doing something. No, you need to go knock on 50 doors in your neighborhood for a candidate that's in a swing district. That's how you win elections. Yeah. That has not changed, and your social media posts are not. They do not compensate for your actual door knocking and phone calls that we need to make.
Unless your social media posts encourage others to do that.
Yeah.
To go out and vote. Yeah. That's all they should say for the next 2 weeks. Why don't we just not post anything but vote, y'all? None of that other stuff.
Yeah.
Because we need to stay focused. But to me, that is sort of a practice of what you're talking about. That's dealing, in a mindful way with what we're facing now, not being scared not to vote, not being scared into voting, as we mentioned, what's happening in Honduras and Guatemala, not being scared into voting around some false issue.
Right.
But dealing with, we live in a country where your vote counts, your vote matters, and we all should have a say in what's going on.
Don't vote your fears, right? Vote your aspirations.
Yeah.
And, I think we, as Democrats, we need to do a better job of really painting that aspirational picture. But a lot of the mindfulness type practices is not about sitting on a cushion and being disconnected from the world.
Sure.
It is about when you are in the world, you are in your life, you are in the fight, you are in the circus. And participating fully and bringing everything you got to bear, not being in the moment. I mean, Tom Brady is not living 3 years ago when he's, and I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, so it pains me to acknowledge. But, he is in the zone, in the moment, in the fight, in the game. And that's where we need to be. We can't be in the past. And now. Let's win now. And take this quietness you develop and bring it into the game.
So let me ask this, and of course we want people to focus on voting over the next 2 weeks. Get out and vote. Of course, the Congressman, I hope you will vote Democratic. We encourage you to do so. If that were to happen, do you believe, are you supportive of the possibility of the Democrats impeaching Trump?
If Mueller comes with a significant book that would, say this gentleman needs to be impeached, I think then we take it up. But until that happens, I think we need to focus on what people in swing districts and in Ohio are thinking about. their job, their pension,
Sure.
their health care,
Right.
and stay focused on that and leave impeachment for another time until we see and actually get evidence. I mean, everything at this point is speculation.
I agree. I agree.
And we don't want to get to the point where we don't know what's going on. Go impeach somebody, right? I mean, like we went through
I
this
agree.
with Bill Clinton.
Of
It was
course.
like the whole country comes to a stop.
Right.
Let's see what happens. See what Mueller comes up with.
But now you mentioned that, but on process though, you would anticipate or expect he would make a presentation to the House or the House Judiciary Committee for Congress to take up. But I'm hearing there may even be a possibility because he still technically works for the Justice Department, and the Justice Department still is under this administration. There's some speculation now that his report could be sealed and kept from people. Does that concern you? I'm just hearing this in the past few days. This concerns me.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's enough to do a huge investigation on Russian influence into our election, and Article 1 creates the Congress and the House of Representatives, which is to provide oversight, and we don't get knowledge about that, I think that would be a huge problem. Now you're really starting to get into some territory where there's going to be a power struggle between the branches of government.
Yeah, man.
And a necessary power struggle
Yeah.
that I know I would be out front saying we need to have that information.
You said on Morning Joe that the tax cuts that Trump put in place, which interesting, they on Republicans, you talking about people talking about individual districts, because that's what counts. They aren't running on those tax cuts. They real quiet about
what happened to that?
Yeah, where they got real quiet. Matter of fact, some of them even trying to pretend like they're all of a sudden the champions of pre-existing conditions.
Right.
But you mentioned that House Democrats would try to repeal some of those tax cuts.
I would be for us repealing 83% of the tax cuts. 83% of the tax cuts went to the top 1% of the people in the country.
That's right.
At time of highest profits, highest income, greatest income inequality we've seen since the Great Depression. Repeal those tax cuts and make sure that we save Medicare, and I think expand Medicare, save Social Security. I think there's opportunities to expand Social Security and rebuild the country. I mean, we've got so many communities that have blight, dilapidated homes, worn-out communities. How do we clean those communities up, get broadband in there, get a new energy grid, and start lifting communities up with these public investments, start plugging them back into the global economy that have been left behind, the Youngstown, Ohio's of the world where I represent. So that's really you want $2.3 trillion to go to the wealthiest 1%, or do you want $2.3 trillion to go into our communities across the country? I know the answer I have, and I think majority of Americans would agree with us.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely true. And then investing in those communities, investing in green jobs and a green economy. What the report just said, we got about 10 years.
Yeah.
And then it's a wrap, which, every issue that's important to us now is moot if we're all going to, be lost to climate change in the first place. So,
well, you want to talk about motivating millennials.
Okay.
One of the top issues for millennials is climate, and it's the greatest challenge facing our country and our world. But here's the thing. How do you communicate that to someone in Youngstown, Ohio, to say this agenda is good for you? You do what you just said. These green jobs, renewables, are growing at 25 to 30% a year. Okay, wind 25-30, solar 25-30. You have battery storage. You have huge spin-offs coming out of this industry. So we need to go into Ohio, West Virginia, the industrial states, and say, look, this is the future. The fastest growing job in the country is wind turbine technician. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, in West Virginia, we've lost 30,000 coal mining jobs in the last 10 years. Now, that's the past. Now, we're telling you what we're going to do now and get you in front of a tidal wave movement. So how do Democrats say 25 to 30% of these new renewable jobs are going to distressed areas in steel, coal, rubber, like old industry? We want this growth to benefit everybody. Then now you start plugging in the high-minded climate folks with the blue-collar folks who are actually going to go to work and make these jobs.
On the ground, practical. You're right. And by the way, speaking of millennials, we were talking before the interview, ladies and gentlemen, the congressman and I are not, even though he's cautiously optimistic, we agree that we aren't pessimistic. Again, he was talking about getting people to watch TV and playing into your fears. All the fear mongering, millennials don't care, they don't want to vote, Latinos, African Americans. I think we're all seeing something a bit different, that there is a level of enthusiasm, whether or not the gap is closed or not. And I think people are engaged and will be voting. We want you to encourage them to do so. Lastly, your future. You're going to, Democrats win the House, or whether they do it, well, if they win the House, you're going to run for Speaker?
I don't know.
You really?
I don't have to. I think there needs to be a Midwestern blue-collar person in our House leadership for sure.
Okay.
Somebody that can go help rebuild the blue wall that collapsed on us.
Okay.
And I just want to be a part of helping the party. I mean, we're
Is there another leadership position you might see?
I don't know. I mean, we're having these conversations now.
Right.
Let's see how we do. I mean, there's a lot of people who want change. I still want change. But I'm not saying, it's got to be me. I'm just saying, well, what are we going to do collectively to make the change happen?
There's speculation that you're considering running for president.
Yeah,
Where are you in that process?
We'll see after the election. I mean, again, if we think we're going to leave the industrial blue-collar Midwestern people behind and have a national party, we are sadly mistaken. And I think, I'm as progressive as they come.
Sure.
But I feel someone like me could pull Trump voters who gave him a shot and maybe agree with him on a couple of issues, pull them back into our fold. And I think that's going to be an important strategy.
Course,
I mean, we can talk about expanding the map all we want, but if we don't win these Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, then we're going to be in a really bad spot. And, those communities need Democrats to be strong and innovative and have a big, bold vision for the country. I want to try to provide that, and what avenue at this point that takes, I'm not exactly sure.
All right.
But you'd make a hell of a vice president. I just want to tell you right now. I'm sitting here looking at you, the glasses, the little gray in the beard.
Now, you think we could sell that?
There's a level of sophistication happening right now.
I don't know about my dreadlocks. So I don't know if America's ready for a dreadlock vice president. When I ran for office, I ran for city council in D.C. and lost. And when I went to South Africa, I was given an African name, similar to Barack Obama. But this is in the 90s, and everybody said, you have to run as Mark Thompson. Nobody's ready for somebody with an African name in elected office. And then, lo and behold, 10 years later, Barack Obama is president. So anything can happen.
Could have been you.
Yeah, could have been me. Anything can happen. Healing America, how a simple practice can help us capture the American spirit. Good to talk to you about this.
Thank you.
And I think this is helpful, and people should consider this. We need to do something, folks. We just cannot be at odds with each other in every respect all the time. And maybe if enough of us set an example, the man in the White House will decide to follow. Lord have mercy. But we hope so. That's
now where I make the sign of the cross.
Yeah, right. That's exactly where you do it. Good to see you, Tim.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
To you. All
Appreciate
right.
it. Thank
Folks,
you.
We'll be back. This is MIP.